Today, all forums of the farmer unions, whether it's Sanयुkt Kisan Morcha or Sanयुkt Kisan Morcha non-political, and farmers and Mazdoors organizations, which is Kisan Mazdoor Organization or Kisan Mazdoor Forum, across the country have given a call on 26th February, which is today, for a tractor demonstration on national and state highways against WTO from enforcing restrictions on MSP, government procurement, and subsidized food schemes under PDS program. Why this tractor demonstration is happening? First, we'll tell you that the tractor demonstration is happening across India, and various clips have come from Abohar, Fazilka, Sangrur, Amritsar, Patiala, Jalandhar, Delhi Chandigarh State Highway, Rohtak Jeend Road, Hisar, Karnal, Kurukshetra, Panipat, Saharanpur, and some parts of Karnataka and Kerala. Now, these demonstrations are against the WTO policies of including agriculture with developing countries like India. And why the farmers are protesting are for reasons that if WTO keep enforcing its policies on developing countries, it would like to displace the PDS system with cash transfers or a direct benefit transfers, and want the PDS system or the Right to Food Act to be over. It also says the National Food Security Act, the NFSA, is in direct contravention to the agreement policies of the WTO with the Indian government. And since it also relates to subsidies given to the farmers, it mandates the Indian government for not giving MSP on Swaminathan Commission report of C2 plus 50 formula, which is a primary demand of all the farmer unions. So, as I said, it will affect sourcing of agri and agricultural products on MSP at C2 plus 50. It will also affect public distribution system in which 80 crore people are given free rations under the PDS scheme, public distribution scheme. And it will also hamper the fertilizers and the subsidies given to farmers in order to sustain themselves. This has been conveyed that an American farmer gets about $85,000 of subsidy, worth dollars of subsidy every year. And an Indian farmer comparatively gets about $298 subsidy a year, which is a huge difference, because of which the farmer needs a support on the minimum support price. It has also been said that if the minimum support price is given, then the prices for commodities will rise. The price for agri goods will rise, and it will also create inflationary reactions into the economy. Now, to put it in perspective, sourcing on MSP only happens in 6% of the crops, according to Shanta Kumar report on MSP implementation across India, while the government claims that it sources agri products on MSP for about 14% crops in total. So it gives MSP on 23 crops, out of which 14% crops are only sourced through MSP, which means that the 83% crops are sold in the open market for much less of the price. The proposal given for 5 crops for diversification to the Punjab farmers in the ongoing agitations at Chambu border said that if you give these crop diversification MSP on 5 crops to purchase all crops at the MSP, the Punjab government has not been successful in even offering these crop diversification programs on uh, certain oil seeds and certain pulses. For example, Moong, they gave the crop diversification program where they will source all lentil of Moong at a specific price. But when the farmers were ready with the produce, because of the moisture content or because of the quality standard that the state government set in, the entire crop, rather than going at an MSP of 85 rupees a kg, went on to be sold in open market at less than 30 rupees a kg. Whereas the retailer pays a price of 120 to 130 rupees a kg. The person who purchases from the retailer pays a price of 120 to 130 rupees a kg. So it has been said that, in fact, in wheat and paddy, where in Punjab 70% of the crops are sourced at that rate, the MRP of wheat in the open market is not more than 27, 28 rupees. So giving MSP on wheat and paddy has not resulted in inflationary pressures on wheat and rice, but wherever the MSP is not given, where a farmer is forced to sell his crop of tomatoes, potatoes, onions, and other cash crops at much below their sourcing price at 1 rupee, 2 rupees a kg, actually retails at 30 rupees to 80 rupees a kg. So, which means that giving MSP will not lead into inflationary pressure. So, that should not be the reason why should MSP be not given. That's one thing. Secondly, regarding the restrictions on procurement, the WTO proposes 50% cut in the budget by all developing countries for spending money on sourcing, procurement, or providing subsidies. Now, India does not spend more than 5% of their total budget on agricultural subsidies or cross subsidies. So, a 50% cut on the existing expenditure would lead to further downgrading of funds available for agri or agri-infra projects. This will lead to a chaos and the death knell for the agricultural products. So this is something which we have to be aware that if a WTO proposal is accepted, there will be a 50% cut on the total agriculture and allied activities like fisheries and dairy and other things. Also, the government of India is proposing to keep agricultural out of WTO so that their public stock holding. Now, it also says that agriculture, because WTO does not want agriculture to be subsidized, so they are saying that public stock holding, which is done at MSP, which should be done at MSP for 23 crops, should be reduced. Now, if the public stock holding of grains is reduced or not done, it will also lead to a lot of chaos, because then the PDS system will not work, because 80 crore people are given rations earlier at PDS of 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 3 rupees, 1 rupee for the grains, 2 rupees for rice, and 3 rupee for wheat. So if sourcing will not happen and public stock holding of government is not allowed to expand, then the PDS system will go and people will die of malnutrition and hunger, which will lead to depopulation. Secondly, you've seen that this Red Sea crisis, the Ukraine-Russia war, and the Israel-Hamas conflict had led to inflationary pressures on wheat prices, especially after the Ukraine-Russia war. And India allowed its exporters to export wheat at even close to 4,000 to 4,500 rupees a quintal, whereas a farmer in India was getting only 1,800 to 2,000 rupees a quintal. So they made double the profit when such crisis happens. And if there is no public distribution mechanism or public stock holding of grains, then India will also, or its citizens will also be bound to face inflationary world pressures, and then they will not be able to buy the products that they need to buy. Then fishery subsidies, e-commerce moratoriums on import duties, because WTO also mandates to reduce import duties on dairy, fruits, and vegetables from countries exporting like UK, New Zealand, and US. And if India reduces those import duties and not able to give minimum support price to its farmers, then you also know that all the allied industries which is connected to dairy, fisheries, and milk and dairy products and milk products, and also oil seeds and pulses, besides wheat and rice, will lead to inflationary pressures, will lead to increased costs. It also says that the dispute settlement and WTO reforms should be transparent. Developing countries should be allowed to work out on these reforms and should be able to raise disputes and settle them. So overall, as our Ministerial for Industry and Commerce, Mr. Piyush Goyal, has gone to Abu Dhabi to attend this 164 nation 13th ministerial conferences on WTO, these concerns become very imperative and very important to be negotiated. And we cannot allow WTO to dictate terms to a developing country like India, to allow highly subsidized American and European farmers to sell their products into India while their own people have no money to buy those farm products or to survive. Because there's a lot of wasting and stunting amongst their children. Rural agrarian crisis is also leading to a lot of demand gap. And since there is less of demand in rural areas, which we have not seen in 75 years of independence, it will lead to a crisis, especially in the rural belt. And the farmers of India, under the aegis of all the forums, want the government of India to renegotiate so that the PDS system, which allows free distribution of rations, MSP mechanism, where a minimum support price or a price correction mechanism for the farm produce, should not be hampered. Also, as per the Agreement of Agriculture, which was signed in 2021, or the original agreement was signed in 1995 and reiterated in 2021 to 2023, the FAO price index is taken of 1985 to 1988 value. Now, if you take the food subsidy bill with value of production at 1985 to 88 value, and you say you cannot spend more than 10%, as of year 2021 to 2023, the FAO price index has risen 2.54 times. So since this 10% subsidy clause at old rates of 1985 to 88, based on the agreement of 1995, is not justified, because in the new price index, it amounts to less than 5% of actual budget outlay for agriculture and allied activities. So it becomes very imperative, and the farmers had the convention on their borders where they're sitting asking for a demand of NMSP and waiving of their loans because they have not been provided for MSP in last 40 years. Their own estimate says that 45 lakh crore rupees of money loss has happened to the farmers across the country because they have not got the rate that they deserve. So the road ahead is, the farmers are asking the government of India to renegotiate its policies or renegotiate its terms with WTO as far as import is concerned, as far as PDS is concerned, as far as MSP is concerned, or as far as the budget outlay is concerned, based on the current FAO price index of 21-23 rather than 85-88. Once that thing happens, then the agrarian crisis will be limited, and farmers and the rural economy will have money in their hand to make purchases, and on supply side, the production can increase, which is currently working at 70 to 74% capacity, can increase to 78 to 84% capacity and unleash the engine of growth. If this does not happen, we being an agrarian economy, the majority of the population, 16.5 crore people or families, depend on agriculture for survival, which makes it half the population of the country. So if half the population of the country are not part of Viksit Bharat, then how will we take everybody together in 2047 as a Viksit Bharat mission as the government of India has given? So I leave it to your judgment and your call by thinking on these lines whether the farmers of India, if they are protesting and asking the government to take corrective measures or actions, whether it's justified or not. Thank you very much. Jai Kisan, Jai Jawan. Namaskar.